The Pittsburgh Steelers have traded for DK Metcalf. This is the Locked On Steelers emergency episode.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things in the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find the show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoyed. Subscribe to this channel to get all of our Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content like this emergency episode, because the Pittsburgh Steelers have traded a second-round pick to the Seattle Seahawks for the rights to DK Metcalf, their star wide receiver, and there is already a deal in place, a 5-year, $130 million deal in place to get DK Metcalf. That is a huge deal for the Steelers to be landing their superstar wide receiver. Omar Khan, obviously, been busy while everyone else was talking and saying, what are the Steelers up to, including myself? And now they have made their move, and we are going to talk about the immediate fallout, because make no mistake, this is the first domino in several to play. Now, I will say it's very interesting. It is very interesting that no domino has fell on the QB conversation. And we're going to get to that in a bit. But let's talk about DK Metcalf. The Pittsburgh Steelers, according to all sources, traded their second-round pick, the 52nd overall pick in this NFL draft class, to the Seattle Seahawks for the rights to DK Metcalf. They're paying him 5 years, $150 million, $30 million a year, basically, to do that. That is going to drastically change what the offense is about, what the weapons are about on offense, and how they move forward. That gives you another playmaker next to George Pickens. But I have to ask this, and I think this is the immediate question. What is the plan for George Pickens? Because DK Metcalf, number one wide receiver, definitely that type. Go up and get it guy, big playmaker. Also, can be a leader for you. He has all those traits. He's older. He's more mature than George Pickens. Do you pair those guys up? But when you look at the money that's being offered to DK Metcalf right now, you have to ask yourself, are the Steelers planning to play DK and trade off George because they don't want to pay George what he's worth after this season? That's a big question facing the Steelers. But there's no doubt the Steelers, there were all the rumors they wanted to make a big move at wide receiver last year. It all fell through. Christian Kirk got hurt. The Brandon Ayuk deal didn't work out. Everything kept falling through. This one doesn't fall through. Now, I do think there's a serious question about compensation. Second-round pick for DK Metcalf. And you're paying him big money. This is where I've been saying, I don't know. The first and the third was completely out of the equation for me. I said, there's no way you give up even a first-round pick for DK Metcalf. Personally, I was more of the inclination that it should be a third-round pick that they give up for him, and then they're able to work it out, because this is going to come with big money that's going to be tied to it. Because right now, DK Metcalf basically counts as a free agent that you're adding in this offseason when you think of salary cap terms, because as of going into this weekend, the Steelers had about $64-ish million in cap space. That is basically cut in half by the DK Metcalf deal. And that's not a bad thing. They went out and got their guy. Awesome. But they still need to sign a quarterback, which we don't know what's happening yet. Justin Fields is rumored to maybe be interested in the Jets. That he's trying to test free agency. The Steelers, according to Diana Rossini, are looking to offer maybe Sam Darnold a contract. Does that mean they want Darnold as their starter? Does that mean that they're looking at Russell Wilson? I don't know what's going on there. And obvious, the DK Metcalf trade brings into question, is Russell Wilson returning? Lots to break down, from those aspects. But I think the bottom line is the Steelers are committed to trying to re-up things on offense and invest in their offense to have playmakers. It was never not their want to do that. It was trying to do that at their own pace and get their own guy. And DK Metcalf turns out to be their guy. I just don't know if this means DK Metcalf's going to lead a room with George Pickens in it, or if DK Metcalf is the guy right now. And now if you're the Steelers, now you only have a first and a third round pick in the first and second days of the draft. Typically when the Steelers want to make big moves, they still want to have enough draft picks to address certain areas. And so I could still foresee the Steelers making a move at some point that nets them back, maybe even at least a third round pick or something that allows them to get two day two picks in this NFL draft class. Because again, if you would ask me, I did not think that the Steelers were going to go after DK Metcalf for a first or a third. If you had told me a second and this kind of finances, I wouldn't have believed you. I would have said that, nah, I think they're going to be a little bit more patient. But clearly the Steelers, in the 11th hour of the tampering period open, they want to get things done. And I wonder, here's another thought I have on this. I wonder if this move is a sign to whoever they're talking to, whether it's Fields, Wilson, whoever they want a quarterback. Hey, this is what you're going to be working with. You got a star receiver. It's not going to just be George Pickens and Van Jefferson and Ben Skowronek. This is going to be, you're going to have Metcalf, and maybe they will keep Pickens. Maybe they're saying, hey, you know what? Pickens is going to ride it out in the last year of his deal, and we'll kind of do what the Bengals have been doing and paying, franchise tag him while you're paying another wide receiver. But maybe you're able to do that and keep those two playmakers. Then you still have Calvin Austin. You're still hoping to have Roman Wilson. And honestly, with the trading for DK Metcalf, if they keep George Pickens, it lessens the need to draft a wide receiver high in this draft class. So maybe that's the answer, that they don't need that extra pick. Personally, I still think it would behoove them if they were able to get at least a day 2 wide receiver in this draft class, preferably like an Alec Yamanor out of Stanford. It'd be nice if they got an Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State. But personally, now that they've traded for DK Metcalf, I find it hard to see that they're going to draft one in the first round to pair with him for the long term, especially considering the type of team that they profess that they want to be. They want to be the type of team that's going to dominate the trenches. And they need other things with that, right? They need better cornerback play. We've talked about they needed better wide receiver play. I thought they might go to the more natural route and try to draft a wide receiver that they develop long term and work into their system. But to me, this is a move that clearly says they're tired of waiting to get it wrong or waiting to develop guys on the offensive side of the ball. They need leaders now. They need playmakers now. And DK Metcalf, leader, playmaker, all of those things injected into your offense. And now, whichever quarterback you get, you know that you have him as a star receiver. And again, if you keep George Pickens, that means you got 2 big-time playmaker wide receivers that can be wide receiver ones in plenty of offenses in the NFL. And if the offensive line takes a step forward, now you're starting to build the semblances of what you want to be in the coming years as far as finding your offensive identity. But still, quarterback's a big question. If it's Russell Wilson, it makes sense because now you got 2 guys that can go up and get it, and that's a big part of Russell Wilson's game, right? But I don't think the Steelers should lose sight of Justin Fields in this equation just because, even unless Justin Fields is being completely unreasonable. But maybe Justin Fields was waiting to say, like, hey, not only do I want to see the finances in this deal, I want to see who I'm working with at wide receiver, because I don't want to have to be throwing to Scotty Miller, on third downs. I want to be able to throw to playmakers and be in an offense that has talent around it that lets me, work with these other guys. And maybe this is a sign that, like, hey, you're getting that. But again, now this impacts the money because, again, $30 million off of 64 gets you about $34 million left in salary cap space. The Steelers still could cut Larry Ogunjobi, save $7 million. That would get them to over $40 million. And that's still enough money to probably sign a big name corner and then still sign still sign a quarterback and then still sign a few other solid pieces here and there. But DK Metcalf is a major splash for the Steelers. Omar Khan continues to flip this roster upside down. You think of this time last year going into free agency, we all thought Kenny Pickett was going to be the quarterback. Who would have thought about him, before it happened, that Russell Wilson and Justin Fields will be the starting quarterbacks for the Steelers in 2024 when we were heading into that last free agency. And who would have thought that DK Metcalf would be a wide receiver on this team around that time as well? The Steelers clearly committed to making big moves, and they are making changes. And despite what people think about, the Steelers don't want to make changes. They just want to stay. They also stay complacent. They don't want to make any moves. They do, but it takes time to do it. And this is clearly one of those moves. Now, again, I'm not 100% sure that this is the right move, because I've been thinking, like, hey, become that team in the trenches. And if you can get your playmaker. I really think that second round pick could be very useful this year in a draft that is very deep with depth players. And that could be a sweet spot. Again, the Steelers could make some moves and maybe reacquire a second round pick, reacquire an extra third round pick, and find a way to make that happen. But to me, this means that this is the first they chose to make this superstar playmaker their first big domino to fall in the equations that they're putting forward. So what's up next? Quarterback has to come next. Again, Diana Rossini of The Athletic reporting that Sam Darnold is going to be offered a contract by the Steelers. If that means he's going to be a starter or a backup, I don't know. You presume that maybe that would be a starter because he started for the Vikings all the last season and he put up some decent numbers in certain parts of the season. But again, I think there's a lot of things on the table. We'll continue to explore this in the full episode that comes out on Monday for the Locked On Steelers podcast. This was your emergency episode, so you get my instant reactions here. Again, I'm Chris Carter. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, all the social medias at Carter Critiques. Read my work in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, Post-Gazette.com. Find me here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. We'll have another episode out very soon. Keep it here with the Locked On Steelers podcast.